Every time I look at you, I don't understand why you let the things you did get so out of hand. You'd have managed better if you'd had a plan. Now why'd you choose such a backward time in such a strange land? If you'd come today, you could have reached the whole nation. Israel in 4 BC had no mass communication. Don't you get me wrong. 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 I wanna know. I wanna know.
That was the great Carl Anderson singing Jesus Christ Superstar, the title track from the smash Broadway play and also movie by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And that debuted in 1970, but we can see the roots of that in 1967, 68, 69, the Summer of Love. And we're here to talk about 9/11. Welcome to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. Hello, Tiger 5. Loud and clear from the chat room. What's up with the chat room today? There's only a few people in there. People are starting to show up. There we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the 9/11 version of Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix, and we're going to be getting into some interesting material today. I just put a blog post up on my site about the life of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, and thank God that William Stick Evers, a guest on this show, has confirmed that I had the right day and the right year. That's great. And we are a little bit different on times, but perhaps we are splitting hairs. I also saw a post up on Sandra Sanar's Facebook page, and she had a very similar post about the same topic. So it's in the air, ladies and gentlemen, this whole notion and concept that the birth date of one Jesus Sananda Yeshua Emmanuel might have actually been on September 11th, minus 2 Gregorian, 3 BC versus 1225. I get into it very deeply on my blog. You can go there and read the post and the breakdown in its entirety, and that's at robertphoenix.com. It's been a while since I put a post up. I am going to be posting more regularly, I promise. I promise you. We are in the, how do I say this? We are in the funnel. We're in the funnel right now. Between now and November, things are going to get very sticky. And there's going to be a lot of intensity, some chaos, some darkness, and there's going to be some light. There's going to be some truth. There's going to be some goodness evolving out of this as well. The tide is turning. Can you feel it? It's turning. It's turning in your own life. If you pay close attention, it is turning in your own life. Look at the facts. You know, even if you are going through a difficult time, and trust me, there are people that are going through difficult times. I don't want to trivialize or minimize suffering or trauma or anything that people are going through at this point in time. I think it's one of the greatest and gravest errors of the New Age movement. It's an absolute abomination and a mistake to not recognize and pause and genuflect before the suffering of the planet and the individual. And we, people in the New Age movement, have often lost sight of this, and I think it's abomination. I think if there is anything that's a sin, that is it. It's a sin of pride and hubris and a kind of solipsistic anchoring of one's own reality to the point where really nobody or nothing else exists. It's a type of spiritual narcissism. But I think even some of the New Age people are starting to come around. I have them as friends on my Facebook page. I watch them. I listen to them. I see what they're posting. It's coming through. It's seeping in. They're realizing they are not alone. They are not on an island of enlightened attitudes and food choices. They're not alone. They get it. They see the darkness creeping in, seeping in, however they see it. You can only cocoon so much. And then you realize that we're all in this together. Interesting conversation last night on Facebook via Rob Tillett's page. If you haven't found Rob Tillett's astrology site, I highly recommend you go find it, astrology.com. Think about that. He got the URL for astrology.com. That's significant. Anyway, Rob actually does horoscopes every single day. I mean, it is heavy lifting. Trust me. And he does them every day, and they're quality. They're quality horoscopes. So if you want to get a quality update every day, go to astrology.com. And Rob is also a fixed sign guru, and I'm going to try and have him on next Wednesday. It's been almost 2 years since I first had Rob on. He's a kindred spirit, and I love his perspectives. Anyway, last night he posted up on Facebook, is astrology spiritual? That was the question. And for me, it's kind of a no-brainer, because how else could I look at it, for me personally? Now, there are some astrologers who do not believe that astrology is spiritual. They see it more as math or mechanical, and that it could relate more to conditions and thus maybe be psychological. But to me, astrology is 100% spiritual. But that's my perspective. That's my frame of reference. But then I also think everything is spiritual. And it's taken me a while to get to that place. because I went to a place where everything was spiritual for a long time. And then as I began to take the attendant pieces apart, I realized that, well, not everything is quite as spiritual as I'd like to think it is or how I define it. So therefore, I need to make judgments. I need to make a separation between me and this. It is, I believe it was the philosopher Martin Buber who talks about the concept of the I-thou, right? Or it's like I-it, thou, thine. Basically, what Buber posits is that we have an I-thou relationship to the world. And that means we objectify our experience. And that in that objectification, there is separation. And so in Buber's kind of model or system, when people arrive at a unified, integrated state of wholeness, everything is thou. It means everything is God, everything is spiritual. It's all unified. There's no more duality. And I think that that's ultimately the place where we have to go. And it's tough, right? You look at Miley Cyrus and you ask yourself, how the hell is that spiritual? If anything, that is a degradation of what's sacred and what is spirit. And it's true, it is. However, by looking at that, by seeing that, it helps us redefine what's important. It helps us make a choice and say, that is not something I abide with. It helps us recalibrate what is spiritual. It helps us recalibrate what is sacred. And it's this, it is the mechanism of duality in play. But it's what we do with it. It's how we wrestle with the energy, how we transform it, how we do kind of a psychic aikido with it. And that's across the board. I mean, and it's hard at times. It's one of the hardest things to do. Let's take something like child abuse or child abduction or whatever that is. There are people out there that are going through. What does that mean? Well, it means that we have to, again, recalibrate and reinvest our security, our sanctity, our love, our depth, our protection, our promise to our children. It makes us realize how important and how sacred they are. So even the darkest acts and symbols in our universe are here to remind us about what's important. And by doing so, we kind of redeem them. If we can redeem anything, it's our ability to take the dark matter and transform it into something that brings us closer to home, or brings us closer to the realization that we're already home, but we just haven't, connected up the dots, connected the lines, so to speak. So there was a great discussion on Rob's thread, and that was my contribution to it. And so yes, astrology is spiritual, and ultimately everything is spiritual. So we're trying to get to some universal message today, I suppose, since, in my mind, we are celebrating the life of Jesus Sananda Emmanuel. Why not? I don't agree with the 1225 birthday. Who does? Come on now, it's just a pagan overlay. It's just a semi-modern. It's a Gregorian overlay. It's a tattoo on a pagan celebration. It's like the tattoo of the cross on a pagan celebration. That's all it is. And now what has it become? It's become this exalted celebration of Mammon. It's been completely turned around, even if it was supposedly that day, which I don't believe it was. Now, if it's not that day, what's also interesting is that it changes the rules of engagement for the astrotheologists to a certain degree. Now, the astrotheologists are mostly comprised of people that don't believe that Jesus actually existed. They believe that Jesus was Osiris or Apollo or some other, multicultural deity, and that the Romans and the Greeks jumped on it and created this mythos of a man. And it's all based on where stars were at the time of the equinox. the winter solstice, the solstice, at the time that Jesus was supposedly born. Now, if you change the date, then all of a sudden the argument towards that system, and it's a system, by the way, which I believe is fostered by more Luciferian consciousness. And I don't think some of these people are, card-carrying Luciferians or card-carrying atheists posing as Luciferians, although some probably are. The whole thing kind of got kick-started with Jordan Maxwell a long time ago. And it certainly got a lot of mileage and a turbocharge from the Zeitgeist people. Then you have people like Archira S. and Santos Bonacci. These are all people that promulgate this idea in this system. Do some of them actually hate Jesus and God? I don't know. I don't have the window into their hearts. But it is really kind of an anti-statement. It is declaring that this person does not exist or never existed. So therefore, let's just get that out of the way and get on to something else, whatever that something else is. They don't really talk about it. So what I did is I changed the date, and I looked at 9/11, 3 BC. Now, let's get into the chart a little bit, and we are going to do some readings today, by the way, so don't stress out about that. We're going to get into some readings. So I punched up the chart, and, as astrologers, we try to rectify the time. We try to rectify the moment where not the soul is born, but where the body becomes animated, and the link between the soul and the body is consecrated. The soul is already merging with the body in the uterus. This comes out of the Vedic tradition. Apparently, it's about 90 days prior to birth. This is what the Hindus believe. So the soul is not born on the day of the birth or the moment of the birth. It is the consecration of the body conjoined with the soul that takes place at that time. Does that make sense? Because the soul is eternal. The soul is never born. The soul always is and always was. That's the beauty of the soul. Now, based on the time, I decided to look at what would Jesus be, what sign or what sign would be on the ascendant. Now, the easiest sort of sign would be Pisces, because he ushered in the age of Pisces, right? I mean, theoretically, Uranus was in Pisces. It would be in the first house. It would be radical. It would be a radical manifestation and expression of Pisces in the first house. That'd be easy. Then you would have Virgo still on the descendant, but it would be in the 7th house. Now, which would make some sense because, again, theoretically, based on religious lore and context, that Jesus didn't have any children, never had sex, all that stuff, right? But if you get into some of the other material where he indeed had sex, had children, Mary Magdalene, hello, right? Knights Templar. Then that Virgo on the descendant doesn't really have as much resonance. But Virgo in the 6th does. So let's get into this. So I set the chart 6:41 p.m. 6:41, which is 11. How about that? I didn't realize that. I thought it was 6:44. 6:41 p.m. So the ascendant is now at 0 degrees Aries. And I thought that was really a good place to start because that's where the zodiac starts. And even though they're coming out of the age of Aries and moving to the age of Pisces, Jesus represents the manifestation of will, undifferentiated, completely potentiated will at 0 degrees Aries. the most complete expression of will, that there is no doubt about who the person is or what to do. They simply act. And I thought that this was a really salient point, that there is no middleman, right? There's no middleman in the expression of being. There's no church. There's no rabbi. There's no Sanhedrin. There's no Pharisee. There's nothing. There's no system. No system between the will and the expression of will. It simply is. So it made sense to me, even though that Aries tends to have a more of an aggressive or martial kind of energy associated with it, and we're talking about the Prince of Peace here. And by the way, if you go to my website, robertphoenix.com, while you're listening to this, you can see the chart that I'm using. It's right there. It's on my website. So you can, if you're listening now live, you can follow along. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can reference that as well. So then I looked at the 4 points of the chart, the descendant, the IC, and the MC, and they too were all at 0 degrees. Of course, it had to do with how I set the chart. And what we have here is a cardinal cross. We have the exact degree of every station of the cardinal cross. And the cross obviously plays a large role in the life of Jesus. Very large role. Now, I don't have the exact chart that I talk about in my blog. In my blog, I have the fixed stars, and I will talk about the fixed stars here. But if you look at the chart, even with the fixed stars out of the picture, what we have is we have a mystic rectangle, and we have a grand earth trine. So we have a pyramid, and then we have a rectangle. And then the pyramid and the rectangle are the building blocks, by the way, of Western civilization. The pyramid starting in Egypt, the rectangle and the square moving outwards towards the rulerships of geometry, Persia, and Greece, and Rome. So it's a pretty interesting diagram or blueprint with the mystic rectangle and the pyramid. Saturn is in Taurus in the second house. If you wanted to have an aspect that represented humble beginnings, it would be Saturn and Taurus in the second house, trust me. It doesn't get much more basic than that. It is earthy, it is grounded. Think manger, think straw, think, little lambs or sheep bleeding. Not bleeding, but bleeding. It's cold. And what are the things, the gifts that are brought to the young baby Jesus? They're all second house gifts. Frankincense, myrrh. These are things of the earth. Gold. Gold is a second house element, by the way. So it makes sense. Saturn in Taurus in the second house makes sense. Saturn in the second house, I have it. Trust me, I know what it's about. It is not the greatest for cash flow. People that have Saturn in the second house will do one of two things. They will either work extremely hard for money because they are scared to death of being destitute, or they will go in the opposite direction and denounce materialism and work towards some other end. They may not be addressing their need to survive, and they may not be addressing the materialism, but Saturn in the second house is getting these people to focus on perhaps what the opposite of material gain would be, which would be some kind of perhaps spiritual gain. And so here we have Saturn and Taurus, Taurus the body, Taurus money, right there, Taurus, values, Saturn, values, grounded in the second house. And that Saturn forms a grand trine to Mars in Capricorn in the 10th, and the Pluto-Sun conjunction, very tight conjunction, in the 6th. That is a powerful, powerful conjunction. Mercury's in there as well. We can't dismiss Mercury, and even Venus to some extent. And that trine can move mountains. Mars trine Pluto, Pluto conjunct Sun, that is super powerful. That is somebody who can become a master of the material world, especially with Mars in the 10th house. Saturn trine Pluto, Saturn trine Sun, extremely responsible. Extremely responsible. And all those Virgo planets are in the 6th house. So we're ultimately talking about somebody who has great power in the material world, but also tempered by humble beginnings and a humble station in life. Virgo is one of the more humble signs. Now, I'm at the end of Virgo, so every now and then I succumb to my Libran hubris. Trust me on that. But most Virgos you meet tend to be low-key and humble people. I look at somebody like Van Morrison, who's a Virgo, and he's always struggling with perfection. And, you listen to his music. He's always struggling with perfection, even though he's about 300 pounds and probably hasn't met a meal he hasn't liked in years. But nonetheless, he's struggling with perfection. He's struggling to attain some kind of spiritual purity in his music. So that's Van Morrison. I can go through a whole list of Virgos, just kind of that's how they show up. They're not necessarily ostentatious. So here you have and look, this could become complete blasphemy to Christians. I don't care. I really don't care. And if you listen to this and you say you're going to burn in hell for this, the second coming is going to come and Jesus is going to take you up in flames, I don't care. This is what I'm doing. It's what I do, and I'm not trivializing the life of this personage. I'm actually exalting it. I'm actually standing up for it in a time where people are not standing up for it, in a time where people are turning away from it. So get off your high holy horse and realize that I'm doing this out of love and not out of spite or hate or trivialization. Let's just get clear on that. We look at Jupiter, and I'm going to repost this image on my website, by the way, because I need to have the fixed stars here to really tell this story. We look at Jupiter in the 5th house, and the 5th house here is slightly askewed. It is got about 5 degrees of Cancer, 6 degrees of Cancer, and the rest is Leo. So Jupiter's there at 2 degrees in the 5th house. And it is also there with Regulus at 2 degrees. And what is Regulus? Regulus is the fixed star of royalty, the fixed star of kings. So if Jupiter and Leo, the exaltation of kings and royalty, conjunct Regulus, the star of kings, so we have King of Kings right there in the 5th house, in the house of royalty. And what is Jupiter doing in the chart? Well, that's an interesting, that is a really, really interesting question. Because we have Moon in Scorpio in this chart. Now, Moon in Scorpio can be very, very jealous. Very, very jealous. 3 degrees. It is opposite the exalted Moon in Taurus at 3 degrees, even though the Moon in Taurus is not in this chart. We have Moon in Scorpio, and then there's Neptune up there in Scorpio in the 11th house, squaring Jupiter. How do you think that manifests? I'll tell you how it manifests. It manifests in temptation. That's what that is. Trust me. That is temptation. That is Neptune coming in from the 8th house, whispering into the ear of Jupiter, saying, you can have it all. You can have it all. This world can be yours and mine. And together we can rule over it. That's the square of Neptune and Scorpio, and even the Moon. So there's temptation there. It's hardwired right into the chart. Challenging the King of Kings. in the 5th house. So now we've got all this Virgo hanging out there. Sun 19 degrees, Sun 18 degrees, Mercury 11 degrees, Venus 8 degrees. What is all this about? Or 5 degrees rather. What is all this about? It's about service. It's about serving. It's about being a servant. And it's all in the 6th house, the house of service. Pluto conjunct Sun, transformation, healing, life, death, resurrection. It's powerful. Pluto, Sun, trine Mars. We're talking really charismatic, really powerful, profound healer. I don't care whose chart this is. I would look at this chart and say, this person has got some healing mojo. Profound healing mojo. And it's energy and will that is tempered. You flip this around and you have this stellium perhaps in Aries, or you have this stellium in Scorpio, and you're looking at a very different person. You're looking at a person who would not be open to serving or helping in the way that this person would be. Go across the chart. Where is Uranus? Uranus is in Pisces, 12th house. 12th house, house of the soul, house of God, right? That's what the 12th house is for me. There's a lot of other meanings. They're there, they're present. We can talk about those meanings too, if we want to. Monasteries, temples, institutions like insane asylums, hospitals, prison. But there is Uranus in Pisces in the 12th house. To me, it suggests that the individual who has this chart must take time out, must go away, must have alone time so they can have the radical realization of spirit come to them. It could also be somebody who hears voices. It could be madness. Trust me. Uranus and Pisces in the 12th house can be madness. But with the right kind of integration, this is somebody who is attuned to the flash of spirit in a unique and radical way. And here we see the seed for the age of Pisces right there in the 12th house. And what's it doing? It is literally linking up with Pluto and the Sun and Mercury. That this is the challenge of the individual who has this chart, to hear the call, to hear the voice, to understand what act or action to take or make, and to bring it into realization, to bring it into physical reality, and to change the lives of people around them. That is the fundamental purpose. And I didn't even get into the sextiles, the sextile between Saturn, the sextile between Neptune. I didn't get into any of this in my blog post. Had I done it, I could probably write a book on this chart, to be honest with you. I could write an ebook on this chart. There's magic. There's magic in this chart. And so the goal, the challenge is to listen and then to risk. There's an inherent amount of risk involved because Virgo is a really conservative sign. And you get this wild, crazy, madman in the desert kind of dynamic with Uranus and Pisces, but bringing it into the flesh and making it real. Everything about this chart is about bringing it into the flesh. Saturn and Taurus, 2nd house, bring it into the flesh. Opposing Neptune at 11 degrees, Scorpio. Where is the magic? Where is the ability to evoke really heightened states of being? It's Neptune. It's Neptune in Scorpio in the 8th house. That's where the real kind of shamanic, sort of twilight magic comes into play in this chart. And what does Neptune do? It sextiles Mercury. It gives the individual the ability to speak in spiritually articulate language, to be compassionate. That's what Neptune is doing. It sextiles Venus. It understands the love for another individual. There's beauty in that Neptune, but there's also violence. There's also deep violence. Why? You don't see it in this image that I have on my site, which I will have to rectify, but the fixed star, Antares, is at 11 degrees and is completely conjunct Neptune. Antares is violent. It's like Mars in the 8th house. It has kind of a co-rulership with Mars. It's a very Martian energy, Antares. And so we have Antares at 11, Neptune and Scorpio at 11, hidden enemies, violence, opposing Saturn. If you look at Saturn, what's it look like? It's a cross, right? It's a cross. It's a cross with a hump. It's exactly what it is. And so we have, this trident, the scepter, the triune nature of Pisces right there in that symbol for Neptune, conjunct Antares, opposing Saturn. This is where we see the violence of the chart come in. There's a little more violence in this chart as well. Neptune conjunct Moon, we're talking devotion to Mother. Plain and simple, devotion to the feminine principle, Scorpio. And again, somebody who's very charismatic. So let's move again up to the 10th house in the midheaven. That's where you'll find, again, with the fixed star chart, you'll find Altair right up there, right at the midheaven. And I just wanted to, I asked Rob last night about what he thought about Altair. And he basically said Altair is the star of astrology. It's the star of writing, mediumship. It's a very powerful star. And it's right there at the midheaven at 6:41 at night. So if the three wise men, the Magi, wanted to find or locate Jesus, Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, Altair, which is the 12th brightest star in our system, and if you go back to 3 BC, it was probably even brighter. I'm kind of extrapolating on that. It was probably brighter. So if you wanted to affix one's gaze upon a star to find somebody, theoretically, it could be Altair right there at the midheaven. Altair is located in the constellation Delphinus, and it is the star of the eagle. The star of the eagle. Agula, Altair, is a derivation of that. The Maori people call Altair the pillar of heaven, by the way. So now we have Mars and Capricorn right there, Altair right there, and Altair at the midheaven in Capricorn, squaring Aries, is really this dynamic. The more I look at this chart, the more it comes to me. Squaring this dynamic of will. If Altair is the pillar of heaven, then the individual must wait upon the will of heaven. It is not my will, Aries on the ascendant, but thine will, Altair fixed star midheaven, be done. The pillar of heaven right on the midheaven. So we have a conflict between these two. Now, keep in mind also that Capricorn represents merchants, bankers, money lenders. It represents the world. That's what Capricorn represents, the world. And so the 0-degree ascendant in Aries is at odds with the world. It is at odds with those kinds of institutions. And Altair is like, okay, it's Capricorn, it's fueling this conflict, but it's pointing upwards. It's pointing towards the midheaven, the will of heaven, the pillar of heaven. Here is a major conflict in the life of Sananda Emmanuel. Then we see Mars. Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn is very powerful, exalted. It trines the sun, it trines Pluto. Mars, if you look at Mars, it's fascinating to see where Mars or Aries planets line up in people's charts. There's a guy that I know down in San Diego who has Mercury and Venus in Aries. He's a Pisces, he's got a lot of Taurus, but guess what he did for about 10 years of his life? He worked for the United States Army. He wasn't a member, he didn't belong to the Army, but he did their magazine, a local magazine down in San Diego. So it's a relationship to the military. A lot of times Aries, strong Aries planets, have a relationship to the military. My mother's got a stellium of planets in Aries. What does she do? She worked for the Navy. So we can almost always see where this Aries aspect comes into play, and the military or some form of warrior, ancient or modern, is not very far behind. So with Mars in the 10th house, there is a militaristic kind of vibe. It's like, yeah, let's take on the institutions of the day. Let's take on the merchants. Let's take on the priesthood class, whatever they are. But ultimately, it doesn't work. I mean, there's an amazing, Mars is the least conflicted planet in this chart, but it's Altair squaring the ascendant, I believe, that has the impact where instead of taking on the rule of money and law of the day, the individual of this chart instead wanted to choose peace and resolution of conflict, which I believe is in the 6th house. And by the way, with all those planets in Virgo, Jesus was probably extremely hard on himself. Trust me. It's probably very difficult to live with. So now we go to the 11th house. And one of the most interesting aspects of the 11th house is that it is mostly in the rulership of Aquarius here. And what do we see in the 11th house? We see the true node. What do we know about the true node? You go to the true node to find out who you are, what your life purpose is, where you're supposed to be. And in the case of this person, they got to go to the 11th house. They've got to create a community. They've got to create fellowship. Disciples, question mark. And they're also planting the seed for an age yet to come, an Aquarian age. And this is the true life goal and the true life path where everybody gets it. Everybody gets it. No one is left behind, right? That's what we see with the true node in the 11th house. It's a fascinating chart, and today is 9/11, and on my site I go through a ton of stuff that relates to 9/11. Today is Bashar al-Assad's birthday. Of course, in this country we look back on 9/11, 2001, which I believe is an anti-Christian dark ritual, specific dark ritual. But what's really fascinating is I played Jesus Christ Superstar at the beginning of the show because in 1967, in the Summer of Love, Neptune in Scorpio was present, Pluto in Virgo was present, Jupiter in Leo was present. All three planets which show up on 9/11, 3 BC, all show up in the Summer of Love. And I believe that the Summer of Love was supposed to be the time, 1967 was supposed to be the time when all of us were to come into a realization of the consciousness of this chart from 3 BC. You can even look at people during the Summer of Love. They looked like Jesus. They had long hair. They had beards. I mean, this is where the physical manifestation was starting to bleed through. It was the Summer of Love. But a lot of dark stuff was happening then to counteract it. Trust me. Charles Manson, who was really kind of one of the most recognizable anti-Christian figures of our time, gets released from prison in 1967. Where does he go? He goes to Berkeley. He goes to Berkeley where he learns how to play slide guitar from Alvin Karpis. And Alvin Karpis I think he was part of Bob Barker's gang. I mean, I think he was one of those gangsters from the 20s who'd been paroled, and somehow he hooks up with Alvin Karpis. And what's really funny is that I've been thinking about Alvin Karpis. I don't know why. I've been thinking about that guy for about 2 weeks. And there I'm reading about Manson, and Manson, he's Manson's John the Baptist in some ways. Teaches him how to play guitar. And so Manson then goes from Berkeley to where? San Francisco, Summer of Love, 1967. And that's where it all begins for Manson and the Manson family. Jim Jones, another interesting anti-Christian character, he shows up in California in 1967. Ukiah. Jim Jones was a crazy motherfucker. Crazy. He was a communist too. Plus he probably worked for the CIA. But he was crazy. He thought that the world was going to end. He was a millennialist, this guy. So he goes to Ukiah and he starts his community in Ukiah and eventually moves it down into the Bay Area. So 1967 is rife with material. And I believe that by that time, enough had taken place, like the assassination of JFK, which has reverberations with 9/11 and the Twin Towers, Gemini, JFK, again, Twin Towers. There's a lot more material. You can find that on my website as well. That the station, the point where it was all supposed to really come together, where humanity was going to blossom into this enlightened awareness, was 1967, Summer of Love. Uranus, which had been in Pisces, had come all the way around more than once, but had come all the way around and was now conjunct the sun. In what sign? Virgo. So here was in Uranus and Pisces. In 1967, it had joined Virgo. Pluto. It joined Pluto. Pluto in Virgo. It was complete. What once started as a still small voice and the radical reorientation of one's relationship to spirit and trying to find that out in a very abstract way, by the way. That comes full circle and joins Pluto and says it is complete. All the material is here right now. Link up, go forward, do the work. Now, what's interesting is that out of this time, and we get the Pluto-Uranus conjunction and still Neptune and Scorpio, 1968, 1969, there was an explosion of the energy of the life and the image of Jesus. And that manifests in Jesus Christ Superstar and the film starring Robert Powell. I mean, it was really a big deal. Revivals are in full swing. You have somebody like Marjo Gortner, who is a teenage preacher who becomes a movie star. All this stuff is happening at the end of the 60s and into the 70s. So it's like it did happen, but it happened in a way that was objectified. It happened in a way that was almost like a movie and not necessarily the power and the intensity through each and every individual. And then we have 9/11/2001, which is a whole other kettle of fish. A completely dark and satanic ritual. Sorry, even though it may line up and all these symbols and all the architecture may line up, and that we're tapping into the same sort of source that the quote unquote Illuminati or who the archons or they are as a result of this. And it doesn't really matter if they're doing it or it's just happening. We have to acknowledge that it did happen. We have to acknowledge that people died. We have to acknowledge, again, the suffering, not be in our ivory tower of symbolic reorientation. And so here we are, 9/11/2013. Very interesting, different time, thinking about going into Syria, mowing Syria down. Of course, Assad, his birthday, 9/11, all kinds of symbolic revelation and reverberation there. Today is a 33 day, if you add the numbers up. Damascus is the damask rose, the rose being the symbol of the blood of the martyr. There's all kinds of wild and crazy stuff going on. It's all happening right now. Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter Cancer here today. Jupiter was in Cancer in 2001. Then we were traumatized and we rode the wave. We rode the wave of retribution all the way to Afghanistan. And right now, that wave is dying. The wave is crashing. Why? Because very similar events is being dangled before our eyes with Syria. Guess what? People are not. They're not biting. They do not want it. So in many ways, Jupiter in Cancer is coming back to kind of the original vibration or the stamp or the seal that we theoretically should have experienced in 2001. It's different now. People want to stay home. Don't go abroad. No more international conflicts. We have enough problems at home. Jupiter in Cancer, thank you very much. Get the message. And the more that it's being politicized and publicized, the more people are turning off to it. The more people are resoundingly saying no. So go ahead, make your case for war. Go ahead, push for war. Go ahead, try to take it to the media. All you're going to do is you're going to steal the people's resolve and wake more people up. That's what's happening right now. So maybe, just maybe at the end of the day, this chart, this signal through time, is still speaking to us, still reverberating. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of music, and as people are hanging out there holding and waiting to talk to me, and maybe we'll get some readings done, or maybe somebody just wants to tell me I'm a complete and utter asshole for besmirching the life of Jesus. What do I want to play? What is this? Biosphere Pulse. I have no idea what this is, but I'm going to play it. It's 5 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is you're drinking. I'm just going to play this. This might be Man Called Clay. I don't know. I'm going to play this track, and we'll meet back here in about 5 minutes, and we'll get into some readings, and we can discuss what I've been talking about.
formed as a result of a dust storm over the Sahara and caught up by air currents, reached the Philippines and settled there with rain, I understood that we are all sailing in the same boat.
That was Kenji Williams. It took me about half that track to figure out who that was. That's Kenji Williams. Biosphere Pulse, Kenji Williams, ABA structure. That's one of his other names. He travels the country and he presents multimedia shows based on the connectivity of the planets. A little bit of a global warming emphasis there on Kenji's part, but I don't really hold that against him. He's just doing what he does. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk to some people here. I recognize some of y'all. I'm going to go to the 561 line because I think you might be a new caller. Let's find out who you are. Hello there.
Hello. Hi, Barbara.
Is this Barbara?
No, this is Lena.
Who is it?
Lena.
You're gonna need to talk. You're gonna need to speak up a little bit, Rena. Okay.
This is Lena. You hear me?
Yeah, I can now. As long as you can speak up, we're gonna be good. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That's better. Don't be shy here. There's no need to be shy. So what's going on, Lena?
Well, I'm still looking for work, Robert, and living with family. It's just getting very, very stressful living with them. Now they want to start collecting rent from me, which I don't have a problem paying rent. I don't have a job, so they know I'm living off student loans, so they want me.
You called last time, and we talked after the show, right?
No, not after the show.
Well, no, we talked, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the show was live and it had run out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the show was running out. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, I just wanted to reference you. Okay, so, all right. One of the things that we talked about potentially for you was working with kids, if I'm not mistaken. Have you pursued that at all?
I mean, I've been looking in that avenue, but I did see something on the school website, and I applied, but I never heard anything back. And I even called them to follow up, and they never called me back. So, I do look at every avenue I can find work.
What city are you in?
I'm in Boynton Beach in West Palm Beach, Florida.
West Palm Beach, Florida. Okay. And what is the largest city next to you?
West Palm Beach.
Okay, and what's near Palm Beach or West Palm Beach, just out of curiosity?
Palm Beach Gardens, Juno Beach, Jupiter, different.
Okay, let me give you some names here of cities in Florida. You tell me what's close to you, okay?
Okay.
Daytona Beach, Florida Keys, Fort Myers, Gainesville.
Yeah, I think Fort Myers.
Fort Myers?
Fort Myers is close. Yeah, it's funny. My son was just talking about Fort Myers.
Let's go to Fort Myers here. I'm in Craigslist right now, and I'm under jobs in Craigslist. And let's get into let's see, where do we want to go? We want to go art, media, biotech, business, customer, education. Let's go to education. Here we have a number of positions today listed. 2-week full-time live-in nanny position, which you may want to think about. Preschool teacher level 2 or 3. Residential coordinator for homestay program, that's in Naples. After-school tutors needed, Okeechobee. Attention retired teachers. So there seems to be Christian preschool teacher needed, after-school infant teacher. This is all on September 9. There seems to be early childhood education teachers, Naples. It seems like there's some action happening in Naples and Fort Myers.
Mhm. I just don't have any teaching certificates or background.
Mhm. Let me just see if we can find you some other stuff here. Infant toddler teacher. Let's just see here. Yeah, I think if you look around a little bit. Do you have a degree?
No, I don't.
You have no degree, okay. Do you have a high school diploma?
Yes, I do.
Okay, they're looking for substitute teachers in Fort Myers, and it just says a minimum of a high school diploma or equivalent. All you need to do is get certified with CPR, and then you could actually apply.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah. So what I guess what I'm sharing with you is for you to extend your search a little bit. Do you use Craigslist?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Extend your search a little bit further out. I think that's a good way to start. And if you go to Fort Myers, you can go. It says strong oral and written communication skills a must. So you'd have to brush up on that a little bit. You'd have to, get some. My sense here for you is that your confidence has just been knocked right out of you. So again, you're going to have to just kind of do one thing at a time. Start small and try to build a little bit up. It says here, it's Montessori method, warm and caring manner with children and parents, the ability to work successfully as a team member. I think there are things out there for you. Great part-time job for experienced infant, assistant teacher, Fort Myers. That's another one of those Montessori programs. I guess my advice would be to cast a wider net. And if you cast a wider net, you may actually find something. Now, here's another one. Teachers, assistant teachers, and a head cook. They're looking for a cook at this school. So this isn't Bonita Springs. It sounds to me, do you have any way to get certified with CPR by any chance?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think I can get that through the school.
Yeah, why don't you get certified in CPR? And I think that at least having something on paper, see, I'm being very Virgo today. I'm being very practical today. If you get something certified CPR, if you get a CPR certification, I think when you sit in front of somebody, they realize, they're taking themselves seriously. They've taken this step to get certified, which means that we don't have to do that. We don't have to worry about that. That's one less thing they need to worry about, right?
Yeah.
And plus, it's kind of cool to know that stuff because who knows? You might wind up saving somebody's life, and then you could wind up in the newspaper, and then somebody will, give you thousands of dollars for being such a hero, and you won't have to worry about working for a while. I got you to laugh. That's good. So why don't you do this? I think getting certified, it's a very Virgo thing to do. Get certified in CPR because it gives you a sense that you're doing something. You'll actually be learning something. It's a skill. You never know who you're going to meet while you're there in the mix. You might meet somebody and say, yeah, I'm actually doing this because I want to get a job. I want to do something with kids. And I know that, you know, being certified in CPR is a good thing. And they'll say, hey, you know, my wife works at a school and they're looking for an assistant. Would you be interested in something like that? You see, you're putting yourself in the mix there. And I'm not saying that is going to happen, but it certainly can happen. I mean, you know, weirder things have happened. Worse, you know, it's like we're not asking for the Brinks truck to back up to your house and just dump a load of money. We're just asking for you to be in the right place at the right time with the right person. And that certainly can happen. So my advice, cast a wider net, go out and get that CPR certification, and feel like you've accomplished something, because I think that is an accomplishment. And you don't know where that will lead. Okay? And keep the faith. And I know that people in the chat room, I got people in the chat room, they can say, you know, they can say a quick little prayer for you. I know they can. Say a prayer for Lena. Let's get Lena a job. Come on. It's not the end of the world. It's not like, you know, we're asking for cancer to be cured. All we want is for Lena to have a job. So let's say a little prayer. Let's hold a space for you to have a job today. Okay? That's what we're doing. And we're gonna do a miracle. We're gonna work a little magic for you. Okay? You're gonna get that job. So go get the CPR, get some certification, cast a wider net, and keep the faith. And when something good happens to you, say thank you, whatever that is. Whatever that is. You know, maybe calling the show is something good. I don't know. You know, maybe somebody allows you, because you only have one or two items at the grocery store, and they allow you to go ahead of them. I know it's small, but thank you for that. You know, and just do your best and have some faith. And you know, you can call back anytime, check in, whatever, and go into the chat room sometime. We got a really great chat room. These people are super cool, and there's a lot of power in there too. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Bye, Lena. Okay, we did that without any astrology today. Why? Because we've already done our chart. That's why. Let's go to 443. Hello there.
Hi there.
Who's this?
Kathy.
Hey, Kathy. Where are you calling from?
Maryland.
Maryland. All right. So
How are you?
I'm good. Good. Is this the first time you've called into the show?
I think I've called in before, but it's been ages.
Okay. It must not have been that memorable then. I'll try better this time, Kathy.
All right.
So what's on your mind?
Anything. Any advice?
Anything. Okay. Let's get into your chart. What is your purpose of calling today? That's a really clear question.
Oh, to find out the future.
Find out the future. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's not always best to find out what the future is, but we'll go there now. All right, let's do a chart for you. And let's see, which one should I use? Yeah, we'll go here. We'll go here. Because this person doesn't need me anymore. They're on their own. I've sent them off into the world. Okay.
I'm praying for Nina.
Good. We should, because, you know, she's us, man. You know, we've all been there. We've all been in a place where things look dark. You know, it's like it's hard. It's a hard place to be.
I've been there too.
Yep. All right. Give me your birthday.
12/13/1953.
All right.
I think this might be my spiritual year.
All right, let's find out. What time were you born?
10:05 a.m.
10:05 a.m.
Or maybe next year it's spiritual work.
Well, every year can be a spiritual year. How about that?
That's true. That's true.
Why cheat yourself? Where were you born?
Utica, UTICA, New York.
Yep, there it is. All right, here comes the chart. Okay, so I have you as a Sagittarian sun, Aquarius rising at 0 degrees with a Pisces moon. Does that sound right to you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So 0 degrees Aquarius, you're very quirky. You follow your own rules. You follow your own path. And nobody really can tell you how to live your life or what to do, or you're just going to find that out in your own way. And I would, William Blake once said, straight roads are the roads of convention, while crooked roads are the roads of genius. And there's this really interesting kind of metaphor, I think, for your chart, the crooked road being the road of genius. And I'm not saying crooked road meaning a bad person. It's just lots of switchbacks and, more of an interesting journey in some ways. And that's kind of what I see in your chart. You have the moon in Pisces, which means that you have kind of an already, what we would call a spiritual sort of locus emotionally. It's funny because last night when I was on Facebook and on Rob's page, some of the other astrologers were just giving credence to the fact that Pisces and Sagittarius are generally considered two of the more spiritual signs. If you were to use just like straight regular astrology, and you've got a lot of Sagittarius, you've got Mercury and Venus and Sun and Sag, you've got Sun in the 11th house, which is kind of an echo in some ways of your Aquarian ascendant, since the 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. So you have a very Aquarian kind of spirit. If anything, you have Sagittarius can be given to excess at times. And when you have Jupiter opposing the Sun, Jupiter in Gemini in the 5th house, and Sun opposing Jupiter and Sun in the 11th house, and both those planets squaring the moon, if anything, you can be engaged in having too much of a good thing, or having too much of a good time, or taking at times risks with either money or your emotions. But you're a Sagittarius, and so the whole idea and concept behind Sagittarius is about learning. It's about the acquisition of wisdom. So even though here's another Blakean term, excess of folly leads to the palace of wisdom. So no matter what you do, you will always learn from whatever it is that you go through.
Well, now, I keep taking all these classes, and I can't stop. All about spirituality. That's a very
Sagittarian Sun, Moon, Pisces kind of thing to do. Have you ever thought about astrology, becoming an astrologer?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
Well, you're lined up with Aquarius on the ascendant. Aquarius rules astrology, and Sun and Sagittarius in the 11th house, in the house of Aquarius. You have some of the markings of an astrologer. Maybe studying astrology would be an interesting thing for you.
I have to put that on my list.
put it on your class list.
Yeah.
So you're going through your Saturn return now, and I think that that's a very important place for us to land and kind of consummate our conversation here. Saturn, you go through your Saturn return essentially twice in one life, unless, of course, you're Margaret Thatcher or Queen Elizabeth, and you go through them 3 times, because Saturn comes around every 28 and a half years. So the first Saturn return can be either traumatic if you're not prepared for it, or in my case, over-prepared for it. I was freaked out by my Saturn return, and I wish I hadn't been, but that's another story. So you want to look back on what happened between the age of 28 and 30. And whatever it is you did not complete or go through at the age of 28, 30, you get to kind of work out a iteration of that right now. And sometimes Well, in your chart, it would be like Saturn in the 9th house in Scorpio. Did you drop out of college at any point in time?
No, I didn't go at all.
You didn't go at all. Okay. That would be Saturn in the 9th house. And it would be one of those things where you would either completely reject the notion of college, which is why I asked you about dropping out, or if you applied yourself and really, buckled down, you would be very, very good. You become a very good student, and you might even become a teacher. So I know.
I didn't want to go at all.
Right. Well, I know it's late in the game for you, but if you wanted to somehow combine your love and thirst for knowledge and spirituality and all the classes, and you combine them in a way that would give you some kind of accreditation, it could be very interesting for you. Because now you're doing what you want to do. You want to take all these classes. Well, why not make them meaningful? Why not come out with a piece of paper or a certificate that gives you some kind of license to either practice or to administer or work with people on a spiritual level? And I'm just putting that out there because that's where your Saturn is. It's going through the 9th house. Now, Saturn, when it goes into your 10th house.
How long is it there for?
What's that?
How long is it there for?
Yeah, it's going to be there for about another year and a half. So you could engage in a certification program, maybe at a junior college. You could do that, or maybe at where are you living now?
In Maryland.
Maryland, right? Maryland. Okay. So maybe it's some sort of alternative college or alternative school, but it gives you some kind of degree or certification because Saturn moves into Sagittarius. I think it's at the beginning of 2015. And at that point in time, it will have already transited from your 9th house into your 10th house. And whenever Saturn moves into the 10th house, it represents a peak in the individual's experience. So there's something here to do with teaching for you, which is Sagittarius, that you have to do, that you're supposed to do. And your Saturn return is about getting that piece of paper or that certification or bundling up all these classes in some ways where somebody rubber stamps you and says, you now have the ability or the right or the ordinance to go out and do this, whatever the this is. Because you are here to teach. You're here to be a spiritual teacher, plain and simple. And when Saturn moves to your 10th house for roughly 2 years, you get the opportunity to do that. And having the accreditation, even though most of the time accreditation doesn't mean a lot, but I think in your case with the Saturn return it does. Because what it does for you, it takes it out of this mundane world of just taking classes, and all of a sudden it becomes something. It gives it a validation, and I think that validation is important.
Even though I get like certificates from going to quantum angel healing and chakra class, you're saying I need to do more?
I would say that there is something that is more along the lines of a traditional education.
Okay.
That, yes, indeed. Because you've got all those other things. But there's something about the 9th house, which is like college. You've got it through an alternative means, which is the 11th house. Those are all 11th house kinds of things, by the way.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's around you, but there's something that you could get that would be meaningful in terms of its kind of gravitas, its paper, because you're going to be going into a phase where you're actually doing your spiritual work and your teaching, and that's in 2015.
2015, okay. That's probably around retirement time.
It's a great time to do it.
Yeah.
Your second career.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pluto's in your 12th house, by the way, and it's been there for about a year. And anytime you get Pluto going into the 12th house, it's a very intense passage. And one of the things that you will no doubt get in touch with Pluto in the 10th house is really deep otherworld life and death material. You know, people passing over, people talking to you, people, you know, seeing signs, all that kind of stuff. There's also a really strong connection with spiritual ancestry with Pluto in the 12th house. So if you ground and you want to explore some kind of spiritual mediumship, that could also be a very interesting venue for you.
I do, and on my recent reading said you need to slow down, you know, because it's not going to happen if you don't slow down. Like do the meditation.
Your Saturn return would certainly slow you down a little bit. Yeah.
Because I want to like hurry up and now.
No, Saturn is interesting in your chart because it doesn't have any really major aspects. There's no major aspects to any other planet. It's kind of a standalone. Whenever I see a standalone, that standalone usually should get your attention. You know, you should focus on it. Maybe one of the reasons why you didn't go to college was because it was just kind of standing alone out there. Your Saturn quintiles Pluto, and it also quintiles Chiron, so you have some healing ability, for sure.
Well, I've taken Reiki class, so.
Yeah. No, that's part of who you are. All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go. You figure out how you can, you know, get that Saturn working for you in the 9th house, which I believe is some sort of, you know, more traditional, mainstream kind of accreditation. You can probably get that between now and the end of 2014.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Let's go to 540. I've been holding for a long time. Hello there.
Hello, Robert.
Who's this?
Hello, Robert. This is Eric in Virginia.
Eric, my man, what's happening?
Not a whole lot. I guess I have a solar return coming up this weekend.
Oh, good for you. What is it? Let's see. Was it the 13th, 14th? What is it?
The 15th.
15th. 15th.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, in the past few days, I think I've been feeling some of the energy coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
I
made some.
Go ahead.
I made some plans to go to New York City to visit my aunt, maybe toward the end of this month or beginning of next month. Trying to nail that down. And I'm curious, maybe if you could take a look and see whether you think that's a good trip for me, and maybe whatever else you can pick up.
Yeah, let's punch up your chart here. All right, so let's time travel together a little bit. All right.
Okay.
All right. Do you remember when you first called into this show?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to think back then, because it's always good to kind of look back when your solar return comes around, back at parts of your life. Think back then and think about who you were then and who you are now. I think it's been about, 2 years, Eric? Is that about right?
Maybe about a year and a half, I'd say.
Year and a half. How has your life been since the first time you and I connected?
Well, it's been a steadily, I'd say a steadily building process of energy and healing on various levels. At the time I called in the show the first time, I was dealing with the aftermath of a relationship that was very difficult. I mean, I can't say it doesn't even affect me today, but I'm in a different place now. And I think you already know that I've been doing a lot of healing type work, both on myself and with other people, with energy work and Reiki and so forth, and that's been really good for me. Yep.
Well, the reason I bring it up, Eric, is because I just sense a tremendous amount of growth in you in the past year and a half, or the time since you and I talked. And the reason I just share that, or want to share that with you, is because I think that you're a testament to how people can have a challenging situation in their life, and that, which was the breakup of that really ugly relationship, and then work towards your own evolution and your own improvement. And I want to congratulate you on that, because I feel like you've really come a long ways since I first talked with you. So that's my first kind of take on your solar return is how much you've progressed and how much stronger you've gotten. Now, in terms of what's going on with this year, I just looked at New York City, and I looked at the astrocartography, and it is not necessarily there's a lot of mixed energies there. You've got a Jupiter-Chiron crossing there, which can be really interesting. It can open you up to new spiritual perspectives. It can also really expand and accelerate your own personal healing. It's on the ascendant. Both are on the ascendant. So it has a personal impact in your life. So that can be really interesting and intriguing, that cross. You've got crossing Venus-Mars, IC and AC. And the Venus-Mars crossing can be really erotic. There's a lot of sexual energy connected to the Venus-Mars crossing. So that in and of itself could be, a trip. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you that crossing. What is the timing of that?
It's there all the time. I mean, I'm running some astrocartography, and those are so you have crossing Venus and Mars at the same latitude on your astrocartography. So connecting up and hooking up with people is a real possibility in New York, believe it or not. But there's also kind of an obliteration of belief systems in some ways there. I'll just read this to you, because the one that's the strongest is a crossing Saturn-Pluto at the same latitude. Saturn on the AC, meaning your ascendant, Pluto in the IC, house of relationships. So a stay at this place has a sobering influence as you're confronted with considerable problems. Every attempt to withdraw from attending confrontations and problems leads to even more unpleasant consequences. Here, your habits and the way you organize your life are seriously called into question, and you have to face complete remolding. Only if you are prepared to let go of old structures, new things can emerge. Old beliefs make room for new truths. But it is also possible that obstacles block your desire for change. However, if you are prepared to continue to undergo this pressure, you can achieve unusual and long-lasting results. Frustration and powerlessness turn into unshakable self-confidence, and clearly dealing with essentials expresses an efficient and economic lifestyle. So you'll get some of that in New York. You'll get some of that intensity, but you'll also have this kind of undercurrent of eroticism and energy and the potential for relationship, because Venus is on the IC there. So it's, it would be kind of localized in and around wherever you're staying. It wouldn't be that far away, a couple of blocks away maybe. And Mars on your ascendant there makes you kind of very forceful in some ways too. That's kind of cool. And then you have Jupiter, and then you have Chiron also on the ascendant. I think it could be interesting as long as you could deal with disassembling some of your structures, especially around control. I think you could have a good stay there.
So are you juxtaposing like my natal chart with this, what you're seeing for New York, or?
Well, yeah. What happens when you take astrocartography? What they do is they only work with the points of the chart: the IC, the ascendant, the midheaven, or the descendant. So then they take your chart. So that's like your sun. Like right now, your sun in Virgo is on the ascendant it's just north of Boston. It's somewhere like in New Hampshire, that area, which would be a great place to live, by the way, if you ever want to live there. And the other lines are lines that are literally running across the United States. So you would find those lines at the same pretty much latitude, stretching from like New York, Detroit, Milwaukee, all the way to like Ukiah, California, Indianapolis. Those lines would be very similar. So this is just a program that takes all of your personal planets and then aligns them on one of the points. And astrocartography, by the way, is money. Every time every place I go, I encounter the energy, and it's the golden rule. Trust me, it works. So let's just go to your chart and just see if there's anything else for your chart that we want to look at.
For those who care to look it up, it's September 15th, 1975, 6:08 a.m. Fredericksburg, Virginia.
I got you. You're in my book.
I just, for the benefit of anybody listening who really cared to look it up.
Okay. So for you, let's see. So we're talking sun. Well, you have a solar return. It'd be a good place to go to New York if you're going there during your solar return or slightly thereafter. When are you going to New York?
It'll probably be a couple weeks after.
A couple weeks after. That puts it in Libra, right? So you're going to have sun crossing your Pluto at that point in time. That would be very interesting. Very, very interesting, because we talked about the Saturn-Pluto cross as well in terms of astrocartography. You could completely remake yourself. Anytime sun crosses Pluto, it is like a deep and transformational reset. So you have that to look forward to anywhere you go, whether it's in Virginia or New York. And it's not bad. It's actually really, really good. And for you, it's in the second house. So it's about values. It's about being grounded on the planet. And again, getting in touch with, this, procreative, sexual, sacral energy, because the sun moves forward. It's in trine with Pluto's in trine with Mars in your chart. It's a very wide trine. It's about 8 degrees. But so the sun would also trigger your Mars. And that's good. Mars in the 10th house, Gemini. New York is a Gemini city, by the way. Gemini rules New York. So it'd be great.
By the way, I have my aunt's a Gemini. She lives there.
Oh, cool. So, dude, this sounds like a great trip. I like it. It sounds really good. You get to come back as a new Eric. There's something very empowering about going there. Really empowering. Letting go. I don't see it as being negative at all. I see it as letting go, shedding skin, and reclaiming some form of personal power. That's what I see.
Okay, one last question. You were referring to sacral energy.
Yeah.
Do you also see a connection between that type of energy and healing as opposed to sexuality? Absolutely.
That's where it all comes from. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. And by the way, you're referencing at the start, what happened over time with me. Last year at this time, you did a reading for me, and you drew. Actually, this was a tarot reading, and you drew did 3 tarot cards, and the one you drew for me was the universe. So maybe that's a manifest some here.
That, dude, why not? Let the universe knock at your door. It's you are 21 degrees Virgo, which is the number of the universe card in the major arcana. Right? It's the 21st card. So that's your card, dude.
Wow. Well, Robert, I appreciate all your input and your advice, as always.
Well, my pleasure, Eric, and happy birthday. And, if you go to New York, and I'm sure we'll see you somewhere in the chat room before then, if you go to New York, just have a great time.
Thanks a lot, and a preemptive happy birthday to you as well.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to the 954 number. They've been waiting for a very long time. Hello there.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hello?
Yeah,
hi, it's Barbara. I'm just listening to your show because I'm having the computer problem, so you're going to see me in your queue all the time, but I'm having those computer problems.
I thought it was you, which is why I neglected you, because I thought you were just listening.
Okay, no problem. It's okay. Yeah. All right, okay. Get to the next one. Bye-bye.
I want to put you back on hold. Bye.
Okay, great. Bye.
All right, let's go to 251. Hello there.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Who is this?
My name is Derek.
Hey, Derek. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Mobile, Alabama, but I'm in Louisiana right now.
What's it like in Louisiana today?
It's nice right now. Nice. It's not as hot and humid as it's been, so getting ready for that fall weather, really, man.
Beautiful. Fall's kicking in here too in Texas. We're getting the nice shift, a little cooler weather, some breeze, and so we're loving it. All right, so Derek, let's talk about you. You want me to look at your chart?
Sure.
When is your birthday?
January 17th, 84.
All right. And what time were you born?
I'm not really sure.
Where were you born?
Where?
Yep.
I was born in Louisiana.
Which city?
Houma, Louisiana.
H-O-L-M-A?
H-O-U-M-A.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, there's a Houma in China. All right, so you don't know when you were born. Let's try this. Were you born in the day, evening, or night? Do you know?
I know it was early morning.
Early morning. That's a good place to start. So why don't we start at around 4 a.m.? Let's just see what that looks like. Okay. Now your sun is Capricorn, and your moon is in Cancer at 10 degrees. Let's see what we got here. And it is, what is your moon doing? Your moon opposes Mercury and trines Mars. Your sun is in the second house. Okay. Let's just see here. What's Mercury doing? I'm trying to rectify your chart a little bit, Derek.
Okay.
And you've got a bunch of planets in Sagittarius, which makes it a little tricky. But you have a moon Mercury opposition. It's the biggest opposition that you have in your chart. And in fact, it's the only opposition that you have in your charts. And the moon Mercury opposition has to do with mother, and not always being in communication or the best communication with your mother, and it's at times an inability to express or have expressed what you need to be shared with you, which would be either love or recognition. Is your mother still alive?
Yes.
Okay. So we could rule out that the 8th house. Let's see. So that means that would not be a Capricorn rising. We got Gemini. Okay, so why don't we roll with this for now, and we'll stay with this. So the interesting part about your chart is you just have this one opposition, which is the moon, and its opposition to both Mercury, and it doesn't quite oppose Neptune, but because Mercury is conjunct in a wide conjunction with Neptune, you'll get some of it. I think one of the key things for your life, for you to feel complete in some ways, is for somebody, and generally it's someone of the opposite sex, a woman, because Moon in Cancer is very feminine, is to recognize kind of who you are and who you are at an emotional level, to tell you that you're a good guy, that you're doing the right thing, that you've become a good man, that you're solid, that there's something about this Moon-Mercury opposition which is very important for you, that you need it. It's not, you can do fine without it because your Moon trines Pluto. It also trines Saturn, which means you can be emotionally self-sustaining. But in order for you to be more available in terms of relationship or connecting with your own emotions, there's some missing piece here with this Moon-Mercury opposition. And it's not about kissing your ass, or it's not about, putting you on a pedestal. It's simply kind of a recognition that you've done well with your life, that you're solid, and that you are worthy of whatever it is that you're trying to express in this lifetime. You've got a lot of, like I said, you have a lot of Sag aspects in your chart, which means you're committed to truth. You've got Uranus in Sagittarius, Venus in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Sagittarius. Sometimes when you get Jupiter and Venus conjunct in Sagittarius, it's not always easy to be in relationship. People that have Jupiter, Venus, Sagittarius conjunctions value their freedom, especially if they're in the first house, which is kind of what I'm looking at here. So, in as much as you would like to have somebody confirm and recognize who you are, where you've come from, and where currently what you're doing, you also want to have the ability to move about freely in your own world. And that can work if you have somebody that's willing to give you some latitude, willing to give you some space, and willing to kind of work with you at that level. That's the kind of relationship that would be beneficial for you. You don't need somebody who will pen you in, but at the same time, it is important because the relationship is important for you because you expand through relationship. Whenever you have Jupiter conjunct Venus, that's where the expansion comes into play. It makes you feel bigger and better about who you are. So in terms of any transits, you're going through your Saturn return right now. Saturn in your chart is at 15 degrees. And one of the things that we can agree upon with Saturn, no matter where it is in your chart, is that it has to do with focalizing your own power. It's like getting in touch with, how you impact people. One of the guys that I love watching play pro football is Colin Kaepernick. And, he's got Pluto and Scorpio like you. He's a little bit later in terms of his Saturn. He's got Saturn in Sagittarius. But he just got, harassed by the Green Bay Packers this last weekend and tried to be intimidated by Clay Matthews Jr. And he basically said, if intimidation is part of your game plan, you got to come up with a better game plan. So that was his moment where he was really kind of owning his power. And in some ways, that's a very Saturn in Scorpio kind of admonition for you as well. Saturn in Scorpio is really understanding kind of who you are and why you're here and how you're going to channel your sexual energy, how you're going to channel your healing energy, how you're going to channel your ability to take hold of your finances and master your material world. It's a very important time for you with that. And I would love to try to figure out a way in which we can get closer to a birth time for you, because I think it would really help, whether or not Saturn is going to be in your 11th house or whether it's going to be in your 10th house. But I think we can agree upon the fact that it's really important for you to take control right now and to limit, in some ways, some of the influences in your life so you can get rock solid. One of the things that I would really encourage you to do, if you could somehow figure this out, would be, do you own your own home right now?
Yeah, we're buying from a family member, and it's almost paid off. Yeah.
Great. That's perfect. Because this is a great Saturn, a Saturn in Scorpio moment. It's the owning of the home, because Saturn trines your moon. This will give you that physical sense of empowerment and foundation that you really need. So good on you for that. You're on the mark and you're following your chart to a T. And I think in some ways, that's the most important thing you can be doing right now in your life.
Yeah, a lot of that was spot on, man. That's awesome. A lot of that, like you were saying, as far as, it was kind of neat. You said the moon was in Cancer. My wife is actually a Cancer. And when you were talking about the mother figure, the affirmation from the mother, I didn't get that coming up from her. We were in, kind of had like a hostile upbringing. We're a little bit better now that I'm grown, but when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I actually got with my girlfriend, who is my wife now, and she actually, was that affirmation for me, like you were saying as well, and made me feel comfortable in, just being myself around her, finding out who I was. So, what you're reading, man, was right on.
Well,
and the whole thing about the whole truth thing too, about being committed to truth, is I'm actually an artist as well, and my artist name is a Truth Seeker. So
there you go.
Keep it in my name.
There you go. One of the things I want to share with you, actually two things. One of the things is that your relationship with your mother will get better over time, okay? So just trust that. And the other thing, too, is that you did not have a lot of help. You did not have a lot of help. And you should be really proud of where you are, because your sun is in Capricorn, and it's really not very, it's almost standing alone. I mean, you have a square to Mars and Pluto, which makes you tough and resilient. But other than that, you did not get a lot of help. So, you are, you're doing great, man. And I just want to congratulate you on, accepting your mission in this lifetime and doing the right thing. And this is what, people ask, how can we change the world? You change the world by living your life in the way that you can. High degree integrity, following, your own life path and doing it for character. And you've done that. So, that plus your art, plus your house, plus your wife, you don't have to be, working at the UN. You don't have to be, a general in the United States Army. You don't have to be a congressman, although you may be one day, you never know. You're doing it. You are changing the world, and you're doing it just by living your life. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man. Just to encourage you too, man. Like you said, I've never heard you before. I just happened to find you on Blog Talk, and just to encourage you, man. Everything that you read, man, I feel like it's right on, and I feel a confirmation in my spirit with it as well. It was spot on. So anybody listening, I've never heard you before or called before. Spot on, man. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, and you enjoy that Louisiana day, all right?
All right, brother. Thanks so much.
Take care now. And there we go. Another reading here on the Wednesday show, Free Association Radio. Let's do a little housekeeping here. We've only got about 10 minutes left. Let's see. Friday, Michael Edward Radchick, the Friday the 13th special. You don't want to miss it. We're talking intensity. We're talking revelation. If you want to know what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico, you want to know what's going on in Fukushima, and trust me, you do. You don't want to live with your head in the sand. Listen to Friday's show. It'll blow your mind. It will wake you up if you are not aware. So that's happening on Friday. Next Wednesday, I think we're going to get Rob Tillett on, talk about fixed stars. And then next Friday, I've got an amazing guest. You know her as Carrie Otis, and she was the star opposite Mickey Rourke in a movie called Wild Orchids, and I believe was even married briefly to Mickey Rourke. And Carrie has come out and written a book about her times as a supermodel and as a starlet and everything that she had to go through, which is not pretty. She's got a new book coming out. Actually, it's out already. And we're going to be talking together next Friday. Carrie Otis will be on the show, and we're going to be exploring her life and her book and her victory over trauma and abuse. You don't want to miss this show. I've talked with Shona Home, who is connected me with Carrie. And Shona, I trust implicitly in terms of, who she's suggested to be on the show, and she was absolutely blown away by Carrie's book. So I'm looking forward to reading it, and you'll get to hear her next Friday. And hopefully I'll have Susan Deheen also on my show. We'll work that out. Susan is an old friend. She's a vocalist. She's Persian, fascinating person. Her last work was she sang on the soundtrack for the movie Argo. Susan is a singular talent, let me tell you. So if I can get Susan on with Carrie Otis, we're going to have a dynamic show next Friday. It'll be dynamic without Susan, but Susan will be she'll be the capstone on the pyramid. And let's see what else. Gaiam TV. You can see my interview with Regina Meredith, Open Minds, now on Gaiam TV. If you go to my Facebook page, you can click through on the link that I provided for you and sign up for Gaiam TV. It's free for the first 10 days. And you can watch me and a bunch of other people besides me that are on not just Regina's show, but other shows as well. George Norrie has a show there. And so you can get into their material. And it's free for 10 days. Essentially what they do is they take your credit card. You get to watch it for 10 days. If you like it, they keep your credit card. Well, they don't keep your credit card. They keep your number, and then they bill you on a monthly basis. Gaiam TV is totally worth it. It is the wisdom school of the Internet, and it is being deftly put together and produced by Jay Widener. So Jay's hand in creating this Internet mystery school via video is all right there, and you want to take a part in that. Great material. And, of course, my blog post, robertphoenix.com, on the life of birth of Jesus in 9/11. Is there more? Yeah, if you want a reading, reach out to me. You've heard it today. You hear kind of how it goes. My email address is rpm1122@yahoo.com. And if you're listening to this show and you are a first-time client, I will reduce my rates by $33. $33. My normal rate is $98. I'll reduce it by $33, $65 for a first-time reading if you're a first-time client and you're listening to this show. Not bad, eh? But you have to be a first-time client. And it's only going to be good until next week. You have 7 days to take advantage of that until the next show, in which case I will remove that offer. All right, that's it for today. The tide is turning. Now, it doesn't mean that everything is going to just get hunky-dory, peachy-keen right overnight. Okay, it's not. In fact, we may have to go through some swampy material between now and December. But trust me, the tide is turning. And it is you and your awareness and your willingness to live from authenticity and truth and the divine spark within you that is turning the tide. Trust me, I know this. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'll see you all back here on Friday with Michael Edward and Radchick. Until then, here's Phil K. Dick.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this, such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.